All right, y'all, we are going to go over adding and subtracting. So we did multiplying and dividing. Now we're going to do adding and subtracting rational expressions in factored form. So make sure you get this title down in your notes. That is the topic for today. And then go ahead and write down this example problem. This is the first example that we're going to do, and then we'll do another one quickly after the first one. Okay, and we are going to write steps on the left. So, adding and subtracting rational expressions in factored form. Here we go. First of all, what operation do we see here? We see subtraction. So our first problem is a subtraction problem, and we have factors. You can see we have x minus 2, 2x minus 2, factors in the denominator. That's what I mean by factored form, and factors in the numerators, right? So that's why it's adding and subtracting in factored form. But we're going to pretend as if we don't have factors, because eventually we're not going to necessarily have factors. So the steps that we write down on the left, they're going to be for just like adding and subtracting in general, even if you don't see factored form. Okay, so first step is factor, and this is for subtracting or adding, factor just the denominators. So when you're adding or subtracting, you need to factor just the denominators. Remember, when we were multiplying and dividing, we had to factor everything. So the good news here is that we only need to factor the stuff on the bottom, just the denominators. Okay, so this is already done, right? So check. That step is done. Our second step is to get a common denominator. Get a common denominator. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. And let's talk about how I think about getting a common denominator. When I think about getting a common denominator, I think about we need one of like each piece in the denominator. So what I do first is I kind of like highlight what do we have in our denominators. I see an x. I see an x minus 2, but that has a pair, right? X minus 2, so that has a match. So we're going to like only count that as kind of like 1x minus 2. And then I see a 2. So those are the things that I see in my denominator. Those are the things that need to go in my common denominator. So let me go ahead. I always write my common denominator first. So I'm doing step 2. I'm writing my common denominator. It's going to have one of each piece. My common denominator will have an x. It will have an x minus 2. And it will have a 2. These are all being separated by multiplication in the denominator. Okay, so again, how did I get those? Well, the common denominator is going to have one of each piece. So let me just be clear. It needs an x, and then there's 2x minus 2 here, 2's here, but we only need 1. Okay, so now I ask myself, what is missing? What's missing from this first fraction's denominator? Well, we have the x minus 2, right? But we do not have this purple term, the 2. We don't have the 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply this first fraction, we are going to multiply by whatever is missing, by the 2. But we're going to have to multiply the numerator and the denominator by 2. So 2 over 2. That's what we're multiplying the first fraction by. That is how we get the 2 down here. Okay, cool. And then let's go ahead and do that for the second denominator. So for this second fraction, what's missing from the denominator? We're missing an x. We have the 2, we have the x minus 2, we're missing the x. So what are we going to multiply the second denominator by? Whatever's missing, x over x. That's how this x gets into our common denominator, because we multiply this x on the bottom and this 2 on the bottom. Okay, so now that we figured out what to multiply each fraction by, we're going to go ahead and do that multiplication. And remember, you need to distribute in the numerator. And we're only going to focus on the numerator because we already wrote our common denominator down here. We don't need to worry about like doing this multiplication in the denominator. We already did that when we did this first step down here. Okay, so let's multiply in the numerator. when I distribute this 2, I get, actually, you know what? Let's just write it exactly how we see it next to the x plus 2. So what do I mean? I'm going to write 2 and then parentheses x plus 2. Just remember though, the factors on top, you need to add parentheses around. All right, we need to copy, don't forget to copy our minus sign. That needs to get copied down into our numerator, so minus. And then we're going to put this x that we're multiplying on top in this numerator, put it out in front, because normally you multiply out in front, right? So we're going to do x parentheses x plus 2. Okay, we are done with step 2, get a common denominator. We are done with this step. And now we need to move on to step 3. So my numbers aren't going to like really line up, so I'm just going to go ahead and write step 3 in. Step 3. And you can go ahead and add step 3, distribute in numerators. Distribute means multiply. Distribute in your numerator. So what are we going to distribute? These numbers. We're going to distribute the negative x into this factor, and we're going to distribute the 2 into the first factor. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. When we distribute the 2, we get 2x plus 4. So 2x plus 4. Remember, we're distributing negative x. So it's negative x squared, and then negative 2x over, and we still have my common denominator. Y'all, I'm going to move this 2 out in front. The 2 can go out in front because it's multiplying, and I like to have that number in front of the x. That's like how I like to see it. So I'm going to put 2x, x minus 2. These are all multiplying, right? Okay, let's keep going. So now that we've done step 3, we're on to step 4 now. And step 4 is going to be add or subtract. Step 4 is add or subtract in the numerator. Sweet. So we have like terms that we can combine in the numerator. Let me highlight those like terms. We can combine 2x minus 2x, right? Those are the only like terms that I see. So that's all I'm going to do. And 2x minus 2x gives me 0. So my new numerator after doing step 4 is 4 minus x squared over, and then we have 2x, x minus 2. Cool. Now we're moving on to step 5. There's lots of steps to these. Y'all are doing great. Okay, step 5. Step 5 is to factor and simplify the numerator. Okay, factor and simplify your numerator. So I have to teach y'all a trick now. There's a special trick that we can do with this 4 minus x squared. It looks kind of like difference of squares, right? But normally, don't we see, like, difference of squares would be x squared minus 4. True? Okay, that's what we want. We want this. Well, let me show you this really cool trick. What you can do is factor out a negative 1. So we're going to like factor out a GCF right here of negative 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put negative 1 in front. And then what would that change the inside to? All it does is change the sign. So now we have negative 4 plus x squared. That's what that changes into when I factor out a negative 1. You can always do this. You pull out a negative 1, it'll just change the sign on the inside. And then we have over our common denominator, which is 2x, x minus 2. Okay, well, this doesn't quite look like what we want yet, right? But can't we just flip these? Can't we flip these two? Because it's addition and subtraction. So we're going to actually do negative 1 parentheses x squared minus 4. I'm just flipping the negative 4 and the x squared over, and I don't need to do that in blue anymore, 2x, x minus 2. Okay, and now we can factor, we can do step 5 even more, we can factor the numerator even more, right? X squared minus 4 is difference of squares, and it factors like this, -1, we get x plus 2, x minus 2, because the difference of squares, over 2x, x minus 2. All right, sweet. We are almost done. We're on to step 6. Oh, wait, time out. This said factor and simplify. Factor and simplify. So here's the thing, y'all. We are going to cross out, but I'm just warning you. The last step, let me write step 6 really quick. Let me write step 6. Step 6 is to write the excluded values. And I want you to know you have to write the excluded values of the fraction before you simplify. The fraction before simplifying. So here's the thing. We can simplify right now. I know I just wrote before simplifying. We can simplify right now and then just look back up here to write our excluded values. Remember, our excluded values are what x is not allowed to equal. So let's do that. Let's simplify really quick, and I'll show you what we're going to do for excluded values. But first, let's simplify. So when we simplify, we can cross out the x minus 2 terms. So we get our simplified form is -1, x plus 2, and then we have over 2x. And then excluded values, we will say, okay, x is not allowed to equal, and we need to look at this version that the orange arrow is pointing to. Look in this denominator. X is not allowed to equal 0 because of that x out in front, and +2 because of the x minus 2 factor. That's what I mean by look at the spot before you simplify, like right here, before simplifying. That's where you get your excluded values from. All right, and then this is our final answer, y'all. That's it. Okay, I know that was a lot. We are going to do one more practice. I'm going to work quickly through the next practice. So make sure you get this example down very fast. Get this example down. This is addition. You can see we have addition in the middle now. Okay. So the first step was to factor the denominators. Well, check. The denominators are factored. We have the factors x minus 1 and x minus 2 in the denominators. The second step was to get common denominators. So I'm going to highlight what I see. I see x minus 1, and that also shows up here. So that's a pair. And then I see x minus 2. Remember, we need one of each. If there's a pair, we only need one in the denominator. So we're going to say, okay, my common denominator, I'm writing it right now, my common denominator is going to have one of the x minus 1s, because there's a pair of those, and then we need one x minus 2 in there as well. Cool. Now, while I'm getting the common denominator, I need to figure out what's missing from this denominator. Well, I have the x minus 1, right? But I don't have this x minus 2. So let me go ahead and multiply by x minus 2. And we're going to focus on multiplying the numerator. What's missing from this denominator? Well, I have the x minus 1. I have the x minus 2. Nothing's missing. So I actually don't need to change the numerator at all. We're good here. We're good to go. The numerator is good. We don't need to multiply by anything. Okay, so for this section, for this thing, I'm just going to write x times x minus 2 in the numerator. All right, so we have x minus 2. I'm going to bring down this plus sign. And then I'm going to copy this numerator, 2x minus 1. Sweet. All right. Now that we have done that, we've gotten our common denominator, we're on to step 3, which is distribute in the numerator. So we need to distribute this x. We get x squared minus 2x. and then plus 2x minus 1 over x minus 1, x minus 2. Sweet. Distributed in the numerator. Check. Done with that step. Let's go to step 4. Add, subtract in the numerator. Add or subtract in the numerator. So, can I combine anything in the numerator up here? Do I have like terms? Yes, I do. I have negative 2x plus 2x. That happened last time. That's just a coincidence. Okay, so let's go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to add those, which means they cancel to 0. So we get x squared minus 1 over x minus 1, x minus 2. Cool. Let's go to step 5, sorry. Factor the numerator and simplify. Is there something that we can factor in this numerator? Yeah, we can use difference of squares. So we are going to use difference of squares to factor that numerator, and we get x plus 1 on top and x minus 1, x plus 1, x minus 1, that's in the numerator, over x minus 1, x minus 2. Cool. Now we need to simplify because we factored in the numerator, but we still need to simplify. So what can I cross out? What can I cross out in this numerator? X minus 1. I can cross those out. So our final simplified version of this fraction is x plus 1 over x minus 2. You don't need the parentheses if there's nothing multiplying, right, in front or after, so we don't need our parentheses anymore. And then the last step is to write the excluded values. X, here I'll write it a little bit further. X is not allowed to equal. And remember to look up here. Look before you crossed out. What is x not allowed to equal? Well, what is x equal? Whoa. What is x equal for this factor? X equals 1, right? So x is actually not allowed to equal 1 because that would make my whole denominator turn into 0, which is not allowed in math. We cannot have 0 in the denominator. Also, x is not allowed to equal, what is x equal for this factor? 2, right? So x is not allowed to equal 2. And then we are done. That is our final answer. Our simplified fraction with our excluded values. All right, let's get some practice.